Star Trek: Strange New Worlds finally answered a huge holodeck question after 52 years. For more than half a century, Star Trek fans have embraced the holodeck as one of the franchise's most wondrous, frustrating, and inconsistently depicted technologies. Ever since the concept first appeared in Star Trek, the animated series back in 1973, long before the next generation turned it into a dramatic staple, viewers have asked one big, lingering question. How does the holodeck actually work when its illusions blend seamlessly with physical reality? It's a question the franchise has dodged, retconned, joked about, and occasionally contradicted for decades. But now, 52 years after its introduction, Star Trek: Strange New Worlds finally offers an answer bold enough, clever enough, and reverent enough to satisfy both casual fans and longtime Trek tech obsessives. And strangely, the solution doesn't come from a technobabble dump or an engineer explaining photon projection physics. It comes from an unexpected story choice, one that uses the characters, not the technology, to deliver clarity. A 52-year mystery that Trek kept quietly sidestepping, the holodeck is, in many ways, Star Trek's most magical device. It's the perfect narrative machine, a place where any genre, historical period, or alien landscape can be recreated for training, entertainment, or elaborate noir mysteries featuring Dixon Hill. But despite its narrative versatility, the holodeck has always created a paradox within Trek's otherwise rules-oriented world-building. The question fans have debated endlessly is simple. How does the holodeck decide what's real, what's solid, what's only light, and how does it all behave flawlessly around real people? In other words, how can holograms support weight? How do props feel real? How can someone eat food on the holodeck, but the food isn't real? How does the environment expand beyond the physical walls? How does the holodeck choose which objects phase in and which ones remain illusions? TNG made the holodeck iconic, but it also made the inconsistencies worse. One episode would treat holographic bullets as harmless beams of light. Another would depict a hologram becoming sentient. Another would imply that Moriarty's intelligence could exist independently of the simulation entirely. Trek writers used the holodeck as a playground, and that meant the rules changed depending on what story they wanted to tell. Strange New Worlds, though, thrives on embracing classic Trek tropes while also polishing them. And in its own very SNW way, it found a surprisingly elegant answer to the holodeck paradox. Strange New Worlds refocused the holodeck on intent, not mechanics. The episode in question, Strange New Worlds Season 3's nostalgic holodeck murder mystery adventure, begins like many of its TNG predecessors. Crew members enter a fantasy world, something goes wrong, and the holodeck becomes a character in its own right. But SNW doesn't just recreate the holodeck trope, it reframes it. Instead of explaining the holodeck as a perfectly calibrated piece of technology with strict physical rules, SNW clarifies that the holodeck responds to a user's psychological intent first, and its physical simulation second. This shift is subtle but profound. When the crew enters the program, the holodeck begins tailoring its world not just to the parameters of the simulation, but to the emotional expectations, unconscious biases, and narrative instincts of the participants. The holodeck is, essentially, using its adaptive AI to fill in the gaps between physical matter and holographic illusion, creating whatever form or substance the story needs in order to feel real. Meaning, the holodeck doesn't have fixed rules. It has storytelling rules. This explanation does something no previous holodeck story fully committed to. It acknowledges that the holodeck is less a scientific device and more a narrative engine, both for the characters and for the show itself. The emotional logic of the holodeck, finally canonized. Earlier Star Trek shows, especially TNG, often implied this idea, but never explicitly said it. Characters might comment that a simulation adapts to them, or that the holodeck chooses dramatic complications to maintain immersion, but SNW finally states outright what fans long suspected. The holodeck's greatest power isn't technical accuracy, it's narrative intuition. This is why holograms can become solid when the plot requires a chase scene. Clothing feels real even though it's made of light. Objects persist across scenes when they shouldn't exist physically. Characters can get injured even though the holodeck should prevent harm. Programs evolve or rewrite themselves when a character subconsciously alters the story. It's not that the holodeck breaks its own rules. It's that the holodeck follows the psychological logic of the story being told. SNW uses a character's emotional state as the trigger. A crew member who enters the program with unresolved fear creates a holodeck environment that manifests that fear. A character seeking escape subconsciously pushes the simulation toward warmth or nostalgia. This single narrative insight unifies 52 years of inconsistencies. Why this feels like the perfect Trek answer. Star Trek is, at its core, a franchise about optimism, humanity, and the ways technology reflects who we are. So when SNW reframes the holodeck as a device shaped not by raw physics, but by emotional intuition, it aligns perfectly with the spirit of the series. Here's why this answer resonates. 1. It fits with established canon without contradicting anything. TNG, DS9, and Voyager all depicted holodeck programs adapting to people. SNW simply makes that adaptation a primary mechanic rather than a narrative coincidence. 2. It explains every inconsistency. Why can a holographic villain kill someone in one episode but not another? Why does a holodeck door sometimes lead to a cliffside and other times to a black archway? Why can Data, Worf, or Janeway influence the program so dramatically just by being themselves? Because the holodeck isn't a static environment, it's a reactive one. 3. It keeps the mystery without denying the science. Star Trek fans don't want the holodeck reduced to technobabble. SNW doesn't eliminate its wonder. It enhances it by grounding it in character behavior, for it mirrors the meta-reality of Star Trek itself. Why can the holodeck shift genres effortlessly? Because Star Trek shifts genres effortlessly. Why are the holodeck's physics inconsistent? Because the show's writers use it as a storytelling tool. SNW essentially canonizes the idea that the holodeck is a dramatist, one whose job is to bring stories to life. SNW's episode as a love letter to the holodeck's legacy. The episode's structure reinforces this new holodeck logic. It deliberately calls back to classics like The Big Goodbye, Elementary Dear Data, A Fistful of Datas, Bride of Chaotica, Our Man Bashir. But unlike those episodes, each of which treated the holodeck malfunction as a plot contrivance, SNW uses its holodeck malfunction to reveal something true about the technology. At one point, the program shifts genres mid-simulation, morphing from noir mystery to a whimsical operetta. Instead of treating this as an error, the characters realize the shift occurred because someone's state of mind changed. The holodeck is trying to maintain narrative cohesion around conflicting emotional signals. This is the breakthrough moment. The holodeck isn't just generating images and force fields, it's interpreting the emotional and narrative subtext of its users. It's not a glitchy machine, it's a collaborative storyteller. Why it took 52 years to get this answer? The holodeck has existed in Trek canon since 1973, so why did it take until 2025 for a show to finally give a definitive explanation? Because earlier Trek series used the holodeck differently. The animated series introduced it as a fun training tool. TNG used it as a narrative experiment machine. DS9 used it to explore identity and escapism. Voyager used it as a survival tool and mental refuge. Each series projected its own storytelling needs onto the technology. SNW, however, exists in a postmodern Trek era, a time when the franchise is as reflective about its own tropes as it is playful with them.